What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy RSM, and I thought, we've been through 5 games so far of the season, so I thought it would be good to do a little retrospective, right? Look back at the past 5 games, see the way we came into the first 5 games, and how we're looking now that the first 5 games are gone. So obviously, I think before we get into completely analyzing the games, we have to talk about preseason, the feelings around the club, around the manager, around everything. Before we get into the first couple games of the season. So in preseason, obviously we're coming off a season where Poch got sacked and we got in Enzo Maresca, who was a championship manager. So of course that came in with a bunch of people wanting a big name to sign for Chelsea. A lot of people wanted De Zerbi, a lot of people wanted Tuchel back. It was a lot of talk about what would potentially happen, and we ended up with Enzo Maresca, and there was a lot of criticism about it. We came in off the end of a season where we conceded a record amount of goals for Chelsea in the Prem, and with the way that our preseason started, it didn't look like we were set to really change. Palmer didn't really have a preseason until the Inter game. Jackson was coming back from an injury, so he didn't really have a preseason. Enzo and Caicedo both got integrated to the team very late because of Copa America, right? Another thing to note is that we just got Nkunku back, we just got Lavia back, we just got Reece back. Neto had come into the squad, Felix had come into the squad, and Gallagher had come out of the squad. Looking at our preseason form, we had lost to Celtic, we had won against America, lost to City, lost to Madrid, and then we tied with Inter. Again, we didn't really have a ton of time on the training ground with the travel concerns, because when you're traveling from one side of the country, in terms of, in this case, United States, from one side of the US to the other side of the US, it's not like Enzo Maresca is really able to sit down and have a conversation with the players or really be able to have time on the training pitch to implement the tactics. We saw shades of what he wanted to do with playing out the back. We saw shades of trying to be more of a possession-based team, but you could tell that the team were struggling. It was a lot of factors coming in that, in my opinion, made our preseason very underwhelming. So this is all the things that were basically leading into the City game. The first game of the season came at home at Stamford Bridge against City, and honestly, it didn't get off to the best start. Within 18 minutes, we conceded a goal to Holland. The first goal kind of came through a defense breaking pass. It found Holland in space in the middle. He did a quick little turn, beat the defense, beat the goalie, and we were down 1-0 within 18 minutes. Second goal, however, in my opinion, was definitely just an error playing at the back. We were trying to play at the back. Gusto gets pressed, loses the ball. Ball then gets to Sanchez. Sanchez plays it to Kowa. Kowa has nowhere else to go, but he just bombs it into the midfield. City recover the ball. Kovacic quickly takes the ball in the midfield, blasts by Enzo, blasts by Caicedo, and he scored his yearly banger against us. Unfortunately, that's how the game ended. It ended up 2-0. But overall, the team looked rusty. There were some promising signs in this game against City, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough, right? And I think the 2-0 scoreline necessarily wasn't the best. It was more defensive errors. I don't think it was City creating too much. Again, when you look at the stats of the game, right? City had 0.77 xG. We had 1.01 xG. Did we have some shots? Did we have some chances to take the game? Yeah, of course we did. I would say we did, but we weren't clinical. You could tell that the team was rusty, so I really wasn't expecting too much, because this is a new team. They haven't had that much time on the training ground to really implement the idea of what he wants to do. You could see glimpses of it here and there, but you could tell it was still not overall a very rusty product. A lot of people came out of this, and the fan base was up in arms. They were already giving up on the season. People were saying we should have just kept Poch, right? So you could tell that things were being very much overblown. Very much overblown, even though this is literally against City, right? We're talking 4-time champs in a row, right? Like, this is something that is to be expected to drop point. We saw promising signs this game, but then we were on to the next. Okay, and then later on, Sunday, August 25th, early and bright in the day, we played Wolverhampton Wanderers away. So going into the Wolverhampton Wanderers game, again, one of the big notes about this is that last year we lost home and away against Wolves, right? So last year we got a total of 0 points from Wolves. So obviously we were going into the Molineux Stadium hoping to see something different. And immediately, as soon as the game started, we saw really good impact. Jackson scored an early goal. And again, something else to keep in mind is that during the summer we got a set piece coach, right? And you can already see Bernardo Cueva is paying, is basically paying his bills, man. He's doing his dues. Jackson scored off a back post header, and that's something that we didn't at all really see last season. So I think that that's something to keep in mind, that early Jackson goal. After that, the first half was just ping pong football, to be honest. If we're being very, very honest, it was very reminiscent, very, very reminiscent of last year. It seemed like the players were almost playing on punch ball memory. So we go into the half 2-2. So this is another point of difference that I need to make that we saw from last season, is Enzo Maresca definitely had a conversation with the boys, told them exactly how to line up, and he hooked Mudryk off at halftime and put on Pedro Neto. So again, you can already see that Enzo Maresca is willing to make the difficult decisions, is willing to talk to the team at halftime. And when halftime started, immediately we saw a different team. There was more control in the midfield. Everybody was playing a lot more calm, cool, and collected. And we got rewarded very early on. Nani Madueke, Palmer plays him in on the right side, gets a lucky deflection on 8 Nori. 49th minute goal. Now we're up. Now we're up 3-2 early, and it was just rinse and repeat. To be honest, we kept bopping the ball around. We kept creating chances. I don't know what Wolves was doing. Felix finally got his goal. A great, and again, that last goal I think gave everybody the biggest glimpse of what Maresca ball was. You could see we were just playing out the back wonderfully playing out the back. We find, I think it was KDH who found Neto. No, KDH to Palmer. Palmer found Neto making the run down the right hand side. Neto bombs down, cuts the ball back in. Felix with a quality finish to the top, and the game ended 6-2. And to be honest, it could have ended even more. It could have been 8-2. But again, completely dismantled the Wolves team. And this was an example of something that maybe we didn't really see last season, which was us overperforming our XG by a lot. When you look at the XG, Wolves actually had more XG this game. They had a 1.96 XG, while we had a 1.68 XG. We both had 5 big chances. So again, this was a show of us being very clinical. Very clinical, and it really just destroyed Wolves in that second half. And we have to give credit to Maresca, because that's something that last season we did not see. There would be times, and again, remember we talked about this last season. There was conversation about this last season. Every game with Poch was like that. Like, we would come out the second half sleeping, just absolutely sleeping, get caught sleeping, and it would completely change the game. We did not see that this time. So again, this Wolves game showed how much attacking depth we have, the amount of attacking power that we have, how we can really dismantle teams. We saw a bit of the defensive frailty, but in the second half, it got shored up by the attack. Because again, sometimes the best form of defense is an attack, and we saw that in the second part of the game. Wolves versus Chelsea, 6-2 victory for Chelsea. Now we move on to the next fixture on the list. Now we go to Chelsea versus Crystal Palace. We were playing at home against Crystal Palace at Stamford Bridge. And honestly, I think this was maybe the most frustrating game out of all the games, if we're being quite honest. When you look at the stats, we had 2.37 XG. Crystal Palace had 0.54 XG. They had 0 big chances created. And the game ended 1-1. We had 5 big chances, and it ended 1-1. This game was thoroughly frustrating, because for the majority of the game, we really commanded the game, if we're being quite honest. We were not really under any serious threat from Crystal Palace. They really couldn't create any clear-cut chances. But at the end of the day, what happens is Eze basically scores a world-class goal, combined with Henderson having an amazing, like, you could call it man of the match performance. It was really insane how much Henderson changed the way that this game went. It's important to point that out. Jackson scored now in back-to-back games. However, when we look at the latter half of the game, it just wasn't enough, if we are being quite honest. It wasn't enough. And again, people are going to talk about, and I think justly and fairly talk about, Jackson's misses, right? How Jackson should have had his chances and been more clinical. But at the end of the day, Madueke also had the chance in the first half, in my opinion, which was a more criminal miss. We opened up his foot and wasn't able to curl it into the corner. That was, for me, a more clear-cut chance than what Jackson had. So again, this game ended 1-1. Very thoroughly frustrating. However, very good signs. Again, we dominated the game for the most part, except what we had in the Wolves game was It was a very clinical front line. In this game, they were not clinical enough, and we suffered for it. It ended 1-1, but we left the game with, a very good feelings. We left the game with very good feelings, because at the end of the day, we were able to see us dominate a team at home. We were able to see Maresca ball. So there was a lot of positives to take into the next game from this game. Even though, again, most disappointing game, I think, out of the first 5 games, this was definitely the most disappointing one so far. And now we get into the 4th game of the first 5 games. And brother, what a game this was. I mean, to be quite honest, it's insane that this was our first clean sheet of the season, in a game where, when you look at the stats, right, we had 67% possession. Bournemouth had 33, but they had a 1.78 XG to our 0.78. They had 19 total shots to our 10, and we both had 1 big chance in the game, but the game ended 1-0. So what ended up happening? Okay, so the game starts, and you can tell that the way that Bournemouth set up was very much stifling our attack. They were fouling Palmer. They went for a very physical game. They were not allowing Neto or Madueke to make any turns whatsoever. Something we have to talk about is the penalty in the 38th minute. Again, it was really a bozo moment from Fofana, more so than Robert Sanchez. Again, we could blame Sanchez for fouling him, but Sanchez was only ever put in that position because of Fofana. So obviously we have to speak about that. But again, I know I said, for me, if you look at my earlier streams as well on this channel, you can see that I was not Sanchez's biggest fan. I've never been Sanchez's biggest fan, but he turned up massive this game with saves. Evan Nilsson's penalty, he saved it. Evan Nilsson didn't miss it. Sanchez saved his penalty, and that gave us an opportunity to do something in this game. We come on the second half, and again, Maresca showing that if he wants something changed, he will do it. New siding, Jadon Sancho steps on the field for the second half and completely changes the outlook of the game. Something that we talked about when Maresca came in, right? And something that Leicester City fans criticized him for is that he emphasized a lot of direct wing play. They said that he was very rigid in his systems. But we've already seen that that's not the case. That with our squad, he's willing to be more malleable. Again, looking back at Manchester City, he played Nkunku on the wings, he played Palmer on the wings, he played Fernandes in the 10. We did not see that again. When you look, we see now that he is a coach that is willing to make changes, that is willing to try to find his best 11, that is willing to try to find a solution. Jadon Sancho is a different solution than Pedro Neto. Jadon Sancho is a lot more of a 1-2 winger. He can be direct like Neto, yes, but he's a lot more focused on making the passes, on making trying to get into the box, trying to dribble, trying to do more intricate plays, right? Trying to link up a lot more. And Jadon Sancho came on, and the entire facet of the game changed completely. You can tell that Bournemouth were not ready to handle Jadon Sancho and what he offered to the game. He offered a lot more pause to the game. He would receive the ball on that left-hand side and wait. He would wait for somebody to make an overlapping run, and you can tell that Jadon Sancho and Cucurella, very interesting chemistry. Very interesting. I'd love to see it. Cucurella made a ton of overlapping runs, as did Viega. And you can tell when we gained a lot more control in the game thanks to Jadon Sancho and the threat that he was offering, the whole team looked better. And Nkunku comes on, and Nkunku and Sancho were cooking, bro. You could tell. And Nkunku came on, again, we could criticize it maybe a little late in the 79th minute, but Nkunku came on, and you can tell that Nkunku and Sancho, they were understanding each other from minute one. So the end of the day, it came down. Sancho on the left. Viega makes an overlapping run. Viega's overlapping run creates millimeters of space for Sancho to thread a pass to Nkunku. Nkunku's able to turn in a tight space and just round the keeper for the 1-0. Again, I'm going to bring up my reaction because I was streaming the watch along to that Nkunku goal. Again, I lost my mind. We really didn't deserve it. Nkunku! 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 Let's go! Nkunku! Get it! Let's go! Get the balloon out! Oh! Let's go! That's what I'm talking about! Yo! Nkunku! But we got the 1-0 win thanks to 3 people. Jadon Sancho, Nkunku, and Sanchez. Like, again, immense performance from Sanchez. And in my opinion, I know that Sancho got man of the match, but Robert Sanchez deserved man of the match. He came up huge this game, came up clutch. This showed a different mentality from last year. When you look at last year, we were protecting ties. We were protecting points. Maresca went there to win it. Every substitution he made was to go out there and win the game. He did not want to protect the point. He wanted to win the game. And at the end of the day, his substitutions, because they were positive substitutions to make the game, won us the game 1-0. Where last season we would have just gotten 1 point, lost 2. Here we're able to get 3. We showed a bit of mentality with the team. They were able to be resilient. We had different people stepping up. Even if Palmer necessarily didn't have the best game, he was getting fouled. He was attracting attention to himself, because now in this season he will have the hazard S treatment, where they will be doubling up on him. They're not gonna go for the ball. They're just gonna be going for him. They're gonna be kicking his shins. They're gonna be kicking his legs. Again, this is something that Palmer has to get used to. But this showed that our team has other people now in our team that can step up when Palmer isn't necessarily having the best game. And that's something that in this game we were able to show that, and it's something to look forward to in the future. Again, every single game has taught us a different lesson about our team, has showed us something new. And now we go into the last game of the 5-game run. Alright, and then the last game out of the first 5 games was an away game to West Ham United at the London Stadium. Again, we have not had the best track record going into this game. When you look at how West Ham came in, however, you could tell that they were a team there to be beat. Immediately off rip again. Sancho and Jackson. Jackson very quick on his feet. Off a foul, plays the ball into Enzo. Enzo plays the ball to Jackson. Jackson to Sancho. Sancho on the wing makes a forward pass to Jackson, who had already beat his defender. Jackson charges at the goal and scores in the first 4 minutes, completely deflating the West Ham United. You could tell they were deflated after that. After that, for the next 20 minutes, we were completely in control, bopping them off the park, passing the ball around, pass. And you could tell that, you know, this is in this game, after many training sessions, after many games, we saw Maresca ball completely stifle and dominate an opponent. And that is what this was. This was Maresca ball. We were playing at the back wonderfully. We were not under any real pressure defensively. We were playing around the team. We were trying to move people around, make intricate passes, and then explode on this, and then exploded when we could. And when you look at the goal that came in the 18th minute, right? I think it was almost 2 minutes of uninterrupted possession, just passing the ball around. You know, Jackson coming down to bring a defender closer. Palmer making a run to move a defender slightly to the right. Enzo coming down to bring a center back with him as well. Until we find enough space, Enzo makes a quick pass to Caicedo. Caicedo sees that Jackson's making a run, boom, passes it to Jackson. Jackson with a very clinical finish. And again, this is huge from Jackson. Huge. Again, he's been heavily criticized after that Bournemouth game. I think everybody wanted Nkunku to start. But Maresca said, "Jackson, I trust you," and Jackson responded. 2 goals within 20 minutes. Immense. And that second goal was an amazing clinical finish. Outside the boot, into the corner. First time. I mean, come on. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing, especially when we look at where Jackson was at the beginning of last season compared to how he's starting this season now. We see that we have a striker that has the ability to break open a game like that. And again, this is becoming a trend for Jackson. He scored in the first 4 minutes, right? First 4 minutes. When we look at the Crystal Palace game, he also scored very early in the 25th minute. When we look at the Wolves game, when did he score? He scored in the 2nd minute. And again, with Maresca ball, if we're able to immediately put a team on the back foot like that early in the game, we are able to stifle them. We're able to make them desperate, so they're going to come press us more. We can play out the press and be dangerous that way. It gives us the ability to do something different. So now we are 2-0 up, and we're really in cruise control. Again, West Ham United had a bit here and there, but not much at all. And we really sat back and absorbed pressure well. And this is something that was really amazing to see. You can tell when we were 2-0 up, Maresca's had the team play a bit differently. We played to control the game. We didn't need to gas ourselves. We didn't need to try to, go for a Wolves scoreline. The game wasn't asking for that, so we didn't do that. We controlled the game from then on. Somebody that needs to be spoken about for this game is Caicedo. Jackson gets it because he got an assist and 2 goals, right? But Caicedo was immense for the entire game. He was everywhere. I'm not going to call him Conte, but this was a Conte-esque performance. Absolutely breaking up play everywhere. Clean tackles, no fouls, no yellows. It was absolutely immense. He was everywhere. West Ham could not get any attack going. They could not get any possession started in the midfield because Caicedo was everywhere, making blocks, making tackles defensively. He had an assist this game as well for Jackson. It was absolutely immense. We are 5th in the table, 3 wins, 1 defeat, 1 loss, 11 goals, 5 goals conceded. That's big. That's really big. We are only 2nd to goals to Manchester City. We have more goals than Liverpool. We have more goals than Aston Villa. We have more goals than Arsenal. We have more goals than anybody else other than City. And in terms of goal conceded, 5 is not too bad, to be honest. It's not too bad. And now we have consecutive clean sheets in the Premier League. This is big because, like we spoke about, with players finding form, an entire defensive line can find form in keeping a clean sheet. And this is very big. Okay. So now, end of this game, what takeaways do we have compared to the beginning of the season, right? I think we should start there. So now, looking at what takeaways we can have from these first 5 games, one of the biggest criticisms was, again, Maresca is a championship manager. How is he going to do with this team, right? I think he's done really well. When we look at how he has impacted the team in terms of style of play, we see consistent attacking patterns. We see a style of play. We see that the team is not only doing that, but they're enjoying the style of play. And Maresca, in his post-match interviews and the way he speaks to the players and the way he's authoritative and has stamped down on the squad, you can see that the squad respects him. He has authority, and they like and enjoy his style of play, which is massive. So again, a lot of the criticism for Enzo Maresca has not only fallen to the wayside, now is very positive. when people were first in the City game booing him, right, and booing his play style of playing at the back, of trying to do a more patient build up, completely 180. Right now, people love it. They say Maresca, he's no nonsense. He makes good decisions. I like the way he speaks in pressers. A completely different change. When we speak about the defense, coming into preseason, absolutely horrendous. Errors everywhere, leaking goals, leaking chances. When we look at the West Ham game, we shut them down really, really well. When we look at our bench is strong. We have great attacking options coming off the bench. We have players who are no longer safe in their position because they know there's somebody on the bench who will perform. There's somebody on the bench who's willing and ready to take your place. And not only that, the manager is willing to say, hey, you're not performing? Get to the back, kiddo. You're done. You're cooked. You hear that? You're cooked. Because Maresca's that type of manager. He's that type of manager. He said, if you don't believe in the solid play, if you're not performing, you're gone. Again, he hooked Neto. He's made errors. He played Enzo in the 10. Didn't work. We haven't seen it again. He played in Kuku on the wing. He's not playing in Kuku on the wing. And not only that, he's specified positions for everybody on that team. If something isn't working, he's not going to stick with it. He's very adaptable for his game plan, right? If we're controlling a game, he's not going to force them to keep attacking to potentially injure themselves and wear themselves out. He's not that type of manager. So I think in terms of Enzo Maresca, that's completely done. In terms of the defense, we're seeing it build. It's getting better and better. In terms of the midfield, again, Caicedo has been immense. We've seen he had a slow start to the season. He's looking immense now with that West Ham game. He had an amazing game. And now we have quality depth, right? Hopefully we have Lavia coming back soon. And that'll completely change the the outlook of the way that the midfield looks, about the positioning, how just the way that the attack has people willing to take your place if you're not doing well. Lavia can be that for Enzo and Caicedo. Again, if either of them are doing poorly, Lavia is right there on the bench, and we saw in that City game how much he can control that midfield. How he can distribute the ball, how he can be press resistant. So there's a lot there. Again, we got criticized for the 40-man squad. Now people, however, have changed the tune and are talking about, oh my God, they have an amazing attacking depth. Their bench is one of the best. And that's how everything changes. That's how everything changes. Jackson went from being criticized. Now that Nkuku is nipping at his heels, look at how clinical he is in front of goal. Look at that West Ham game. Now that you know that Nkuku is there, ready to take your spot, you just move different. You move different. And now we leave this first 5 games. We're in 5th place. We are in pole position to hold our position here at the top of the table. Obviously, we've answered a lot of the questions that we had in preseason. I think there's a great feeling around the team, within the team, with the fans, with the with the supporters. A lot of the criticism has quieted down. Why? Because winning changes that. So these first 5 overall, positive. Overall, very positive feeling. These are positive signs that this young squad is starting to gel, that they're believing in Enzo Maresca's form of play. So I think that we have a very good chance of keeping our position on the table and climbing up. Like I said, I think top 4 is easily doable for us. And like Lewis was saying, maybe we can put a little lazy on in 3rd. Let's keep it hush-hush, right? But I believe in our team. I think we're going to shut a lot of mouths this season. And now we have our next 5 games, right? And these run of games is going to be very, very big for us. So our next challenge is this Saturday at home against Brighton. I think with our style of play, with our quality of players, we should be able to handle Brighton at home. I'm hoping for another clean sheet for our team. That would be massive. And then again, we have another home game against Forest in the Prem. Again, we should be able to get the points from there. And then we have our challenges, right? We have Liverpool away. We have Newcastle at home. And then I think we have United away. So these are very big games. Very big games. So if we're able to, again, clean sheets, win the games, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, we go into Liverpool, Newcastle, United, and we're able to see what we're made of.